Darkcast Network. Welcome to the dark side of podcasts.
Content warning ahead. This podcast contains very sensitive topics such as missing persons, unsolved cases, haunted houses, and paranormal activity. These type of topics can contain very upsetting, sensitive details and stories. Please listen responsibly. Hey there, and welcome to Misty Mysteries. You may be wondering, Keely, what's up with your audio today? And what's up with this intro? So, here's the deal. Till August 9th, I'm going to be on a break. I will be working behind the scenes, writing, getting together collabs, doing everything I need to do to get this podcast tip-top shape for the fall spooky season. But there is more to it than just behind-the-scenes stuff. It's just too hot to record in my regular recording space, in my regular recording settings, and it's just not safe to record right now. During my break, I will be featuring some episodes from some of the many new podcasts to join the Darkcast Network. This week, I'm going to be featuring an episode from Burnt Marshmallows. Burnt Marshmallows is hosted by Aurora. Aurora is amazing. You may also know her because she is the host of Murder News, well, one of the hosts, and she has now put together this Burnt Marshmallow podcast. It's a solo podcast, but it's so beautifully done, so well produced, and her voice is just so relaxing to listen to. So, let me sign off and let Aurora take over this week.
Welcome to Burnt Marshmallows Cozy Mysteries. Grab your marshmallows and sleeping bags. It's time for a spooky story around the campfire. Not to worry if you scare easily. We are here with some cozy stories to keep you entertained and maybe even tuck you into sleep. Toast that marshmallow to a backdrop of ghost stories, mysteries, and sometimes an occasional monster. I'm your host, Aurora, and today we have a serial killer on the loose in the Midnight Ripper. Today's story was requested by our friend Wendy, who said she would like to hear the whole story when we posted a spooky short version of this on Instagram. So let's dive into the Midnight Ripper. Jenny Wu laughed as she leaned against the bar, engrossed in a conversation with a handsome man beside her. The dimly lit bar in Darkhaven buzzed with music and chatter, creating an atmosphere of excitement. Her friends surrounded her, their voices blending with the rhythmic beats. Jenny's eyes sparkled as she flirted with the mysterious stranger, enjoying the thrill of the moment. The man excused himself to use the restroom, leaving Jenny momentarily alone. She took a moment to glance around the bar, assessing the crowd and soaking in the ambience. She glanced at her phone. It was almost midnight. Sensing it was time to call it a night, Jenny turned back to her friends. "I think I'll head home now," she announced, adjusting the strap of her bag. "I'm going to take off." Her friends exchanged playful glances, trying to persuade her to stay out longer. "Come on, Jenny, that guy is so cute," one of them chimed in. "You shouldn't walk home alone. We'll take a lift together." Jenny smiled appreciatively at the concern, but shook her head. "No, it's okay. I have my mace with me, and I'll be fine. Besides, I need to be up early tomorrow." Reluctantly, her friends bid her goodnight, watching as she made her way towards the exit. They promised to catch up soon and reminded her to text them once she reached home safely. Jenny assured them with a wave and a smile before stepping into the cool night air. As she walked down the dimly lit streets of Darkhaven, the air was remarkably quiet. The rhythmic click of her heels echoed through the silence. Shadows danced along the walls created by flickering streetlights. Jenny continued in the direction of her apartment, oblivious to the danger that lurked nearby. The next day dawned with a sense of foreboding, a heaviness that lingered in the air. A sanitation worker went about his routine methodically collecting garbage in the alleyways of Darkhaven. As he approached a particular dumpster tucked away from prying eyes, a pungent odor assaulted his senses. Curiosity mixed with a growing unease compelled him to investigate further. Peering inside the dumpster, the sanitation worker recoiled in horror. There, amidst discarded refuse, lay the lifeless body of Jenny Wu. Shock washed over him, freezing him in place for a moment before he scrambled to call the authorities. Detective Lindsay Johnson, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for tenacity, received the distressing call. Her partner, Richard Brooks, accompanied her to the grim scene. Lindsay had earned her stripes in the force, a result of years of dedication and an unwavering commitment to justice. Her sharp intellect and instinctive understanding of criminal behavior made her a force to be reckoned with. Together, Lindsay and Richard approached the dumpster, their footsteps muffled by a hushed tension. The crime scene unfolded before them, a chilling tableau of darkness and despair. Jenny's lifeless body lay crumpled within the refuse, her once vibrant spirit extinguished. Marks marred her delicate neck, evidence of a brutal strangulation. Lindsay knelt beside the victim, her gloved hands carefully examining the surroundings. It was clear that Jenny had been taken elsewhere, her life snuffed out in another location, only to be disposed of in a dumpster near the bar where she was last seen alive. Detective Lindsay Johnson knew the Midnight Ripper case all too well. Over the past 18 months, she had tirelessly investigated the murders of his 4 previous victims, each one leaving behind a haunted void in the hearts of their loved ones. The Midnight Ripper was cunning, selecting young and beautiful victims who found themselves out alone at night, unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows. The first victim was Maria Ramirez. She disappeared one summer night, leaving her friends waiting for her outside of a popular nightclub. They had planned to celebrate her recent graduation. Maria's lifeless body was found a few days later in a secluded park, her dreams of a bright future extinguished. The second victim, Aisha Cooper, was a college student with a passion for art. She vanished on a crisp autumn evening as she left a gallery opening, her sketchbook clutched tightly in her hand. Aisha was discovered by the riverside, a stark contrast to the beauty she had once brought to the world with her artistic talent. Kara Thompson, a medical student, was the third victim. She had gone out for a nightcap at a cozy jazz club, seeking solace from the damaging rigors of her studies. When Kara didn't return home, her worried friends reported her missing. Her body was found near a deserted alley, robbing the world of a brilliant mind destined to heal and comfort. The fourth victim, Leila Chun, had aspirations of becoming a chef and disappeared on a winter night. She had left her job at a popular restaurant, her laughter and warmth leaving a lasting impression on those she encountered. Days later, her lifeless body was discovered, hidden within an abandoned warehouse, ending her culinary dreams. Each victim represented a tapestry of dreams, their lives cruelly snuffed out by the Midnight Ripper's deadly grip. Lindsay had meticulously combed through evidence, interviewed witnesses, and chased countless leads, but the killer remained elusive, leaving behind only shattered lives and a city gripped by fear. The realization that the Midnight Ripper had struck again, claiming Jenny Wu as his latest victim, sent a chilling wave through Lindsay's veins. The pattern was unmistakable. Each victim had last been seen around midnight, either leaving bars or heading out for the night. All had met their tragic fate, strangled and discarded like unwanted remnants of the night. Lindsay and Richard interviewed Jenny's friends, hoping the recollections would provide valuable insights into the events leading up to her tragic demise. Gathered in a small, sterile room, the friends anxiously recounted the details of that fateful night. According to Jenny's friends, she had indeed been at the Brew, a popular bar located just a block away from where her body was discovered. They confirmed that she had enjoyed a drink or two, soaking in the vibrant atmosphere. Their hearts sank as they remembered the fleeting encounter Jenny had with a mysterious stranger, a man who had captured her attention. He was tall, well-dressed, and had an air of mystery about him. One of Jenny's friends recalled, her voice laced with sadness. They were talking and laughing, seemed to be hitting it off, but shortly after Jenny left, he disappeared too. With this crucial piece of information in hand, Lindsay and Richard wasted no time heading to the brew. Stepping into the dimly lit establishment, they were met with the rhythmic beats of music and the murmur of conversations. They approached the bartenders, hoping to find someone who had observed Jenny's interactions. One bartender, a 20-something-year-old man in a flannel, stepped forward. He recounted how he had witnessed Jenny engaging in an animated conversation with a particular individual, Daniel Reynolds. Daniel was a talented artist known for his brooding demeanor and his frequent visits to the brew. His intense gaze and enigmatic presence made him a person of interest. He's here all the time, the bartender explained. I remember seeing him talking to Jenny that night. They seemed to be getting along, but I couldn't hear their conversation. Lindsay exchanged a knowing glance with Richard. Daniel Reynolds' presence in Jenny's last moments was a compelling lead to pursue. They thanked the bartender for his cooperation and made a mental note to delve deeper into Daniel's background and possible connection to the Midnight Ripper's deadly game. Lindsay and Richard wasted no time in their pursuit of Daniel Reynolds, the intriguing artist who had captured Jenny's attention at the brew. They tracked him down and brought him in for questioning, their eyes fixed on him as he entered the interrogation room. Daniel's demeanor betrayed a mixture of nervousness and defiance as the detectives confronted him. He denied ever meeting Jenny, attempting to brush off their accusations, but Lindsay and Richard persisted, presenting the testimony of witnesses who had seen them engaged in conversation. Multiple witnesses saw you at the bar talking to Jenny Wu, Lindsay stated firmly, her gaze unwavering. We know you were there. Don't lie to us. Daniel's facade crumbled slightly, and he let out a sigh of resignation. Okay, fine. I did talk to a few girls that night. Maybe one of them was Jenny. I don't really remember. Lindsay pressed further, her voice firm but controlled. Can you recall any specific details about your conversation with Jenny? Anything that might help us understand what happened to her? Daniel hesitated for a moment, his eyes darting around the room. Look, I'm an artist. I meet a lot of people, have random conversations. It's hard to keep track of everyone. I don't remember anything significant about that night. Richard leaned forward, his tone slightly more assertive. Where did you disappear to after you left the bar? We need to account for your whereabouts. A flicker of discomfort crossed Daniel's face before he composed himself. I left with another girl I'd been talking to earlier at the bar. We went back to my place. Nothing special. Lindsay and Richard exchanged a knowing glance. Daniel's claim raised more questions than answers, but they knew they would need to verify his alibi and delve deeper into the connections within the Midnight Ripper's twisted game. Lindsay and Richard left the interrogation room, their minds swirling with questions and possibilities. They were determined to verify Daniel's alibi and gather further evidence from the brew, hoping it would shed light on Jenny's tragic fate. As they made their way towards the bar, their path was unexpectedly intercepted by Greg Sullivan, a charismatic reporter known for persistent pursuit of breaking news. Detective Johnson, Greg called out, his voice carrying a mix of curiosity and excitement. I heard about the murder case. Terrible tragedy. Word is Jenny Wu was seen at the brew talking to an artist with a mysterious past. Care to share any updates? Lindsay's eyebrows furrowed, taken aback by Greg's knowledge of the case. She was cautious in her response, unwilling to divulge too much information. We're still investigating, Mr. Sullivan. Can't discuss details at this time. Greg's persistent nature continued to shine through. He seemed to possess insider information, raising suspicion within Lindsay. How was he acquiring these tidbits about the ongoing investigation? She couldn't help but wonder if he had an ulterior motive. Half-jokingly, Lindsay decided to test Greg's intentions. By the way, Mr. Sullivan, where were you the night of Jenny Wu's murder? Just curious if you have an alibi. To her surprise, Greg's confident demeanor faltered, and a cautious expression washed over his face. He paused for a moment, responding in jest, Do I need a lawyer? Lindsay raised an eyebrow, not expecting such a response. She quickly reassured him, No need to get defensive. We're just trying to gather all the facts. Greg, his composure regained, nodded and quickly excused himself. Of course, detective. If you need any information, you know where to find me. As he walked away, Lindsay couldn't shake off the feeling that there was more to Greg Sullivan than met the eye. Lindsay and Richard diligently pursued the verification of Daniel Reynolds' alibi, determined to unravel the truth surrounding Jenny Wu's murder. Their efforts led them to Morgan, a girl Daniel had been flirting with at the bar. The detectives managed to track her down and brought her in for questioning. Morgan's demeanor reflected a mix of surprise and confusion as she found herself in the interrogation room. Facing Lindsay and Richard, they questioned her about the events of that fateful night, seeking to corroborate Daniel's claim that he had gone home with her shortly after midnight. With a hint of embarrassment, Morgan confirmed the encounter. "Yeah, we hit it off at the bar," she admitted, her voice tinged with unease. "Daniel and I left together not long after midnight. We went back to his place." Lindsay and Richard exchanged disappointed glances. Another dead end. Daniel's alibi had been confirmed, dispelling their suspicions of his direct involvement in Jenny's murder. They were back at square one, grappling with the frustration of the elusive Midnight Ripper slipping through their fingers yet again. Lindsay sat in her office, poring over the files of the previous victims, desperate to find any overlooked connections or clues that might lead her closer to the identity of the Midnight Ripper. Hours turned into days as she delved into the lives of Maria Ramirez, Aisha Cooper, Kara Thompson, and Lila Chan. Days passed, and just as hope began to wane, a breakthrough emerged. One of Jenny's friends, a close confidant, came forward with a piece of information. Jenny had canceled her first date with someone she'd been talking to on Hinge because she felt uncomfortable dating someone in law enforcement. Lindsay's mind raced as she considered the implications of this revelation. The possibility of a law enforcement officer being involved with the Midnight Ripper case sent shockwaves through her. It would explain the meticulous planning, the ability to evade capture, and the intimate knowledge of police procedures that had hindered their investigation. While the friend did not have any specific information about this person, Lindsay knew that the key to solving the case now lay in uncovering the true identity of this mysterious cop. She intensified her efforts, summoning her team to dedicate their resources to tracing the digital footprints of potential suspects within law enforcement. Lindsay's team worked diligently, utilizing their technological expertise to gain access to Jenny Wu's Hinge account. With each click of the keyboard, they dived into the digital world that had connected Jenny to a potential suspect. The screen flickered to life, displaying a series of conversations and profile details. Lindsay leaned over the shoulder of one of her tech experts, her eyes scanning the messages and profile information. There, amidst the digital exchanges, was the potential link to the Midnight Ripper's true identity. The name on the Hinge account didn't match any officers within their department, but Lindsay couldn't shake the feeling that she had seen that face before. One of the team members, a seasoned detective known for his attention to detail, gasped as he glanced at the profile picture. "Wait a minute, that's Officer Mark Adams from our own precinct. I recognize him." Lindsay's heart skipped a beat. The realization hit her like a jolt of electricity. If Officer Mark Adams was indeed the person behind the Hinge account, it would explain the eerie familiarity she felt when she saw his picture. It was crucial to bring him in for questioning and uncover the truth. The team quickly mobilized, preparing to confront Officer Adams. As Lindsay and her team arrived at the precinct, the atmosphere was heavy with tension. Officer Adams was summoned to the interrogation room where Lindsay waited, her expression a mix of determination and apprehension. Officer Adams entered the room, his posture rigid and his gaze fixed on Lindsay. She wasted no time in addressing the matter at hand, presenting the evidence they had uncovered. She looked him in the eye and said, "Officer Adams, we have reason to believe that you may be connected to the Hinge account that Jenny Wu was talking to. Can you explain this?" Officer Adams' face paled, but he maintained a veneer of calm. "Detective Johnson, I have never met Jenny Wu, nor have I ever used Hinge. I'm in a relationship. I have a girlfriend." Lindsay probed further, her voice unwavering. "We have evidence that your Hinge account was active, using your picture and information. Can you explain how that might have happened?" Officer Adams hesitated, his composure slipping slightly. I don't know. My account was inactive, or so I thought. Maybe someone was catfishing her using my photo?" If the Hinge account was a catfish, they seemed to have inside knowledge of criminology. Could this catfish be someone within the law enforcement community? Lindsay walked the dimly lit streets, seeking solace in the solitude of the night. The weight of the case still clung to her, but she needed a moment of respite from the relentless pursuit of the Midnight Ripper. However, her attempt at solace was shattered as the phone buzzed, signaling an incoming message from an unknown number. "You're closer than you think," the message read. Dread washed over her, instantly realizing the grave implications. Before she could react, the distinct sound of a gun being cocked reached her ears. Her body froze, and she felt a cold, hard object pressed against the side of her head. A voice, filled with bitterness and rejection, pierced the silence from behind her. "Don't move, Lindsay." Lindsay's heart pounded in her chest as she recognized the voice. It was her partner, Detective Richard Brooks. Betrayal, confusion, and fear mingled within her, paralyzing her. She struggled to make sense of the situation, her mind racing to comprehend the motives behind Richard's sudden turn. "Why, Richard? What is this?" Lindsay's voice quivered, the desperation palpable. Richard's grip tightened around her, his voice laced with venomous resentment. "You never saw me, Lindsay. You never truly acknowledged my presence. I was always there, by your side, but you only had eyes for the criminals we pursued. And the women who rejected me, they deserved my attention." A course of realization coursed through Lindsay's veins. The pieces fell into place, connecting the dots of rejection and wounded pride. Richard felt he had been driven to madness by the women who turned him away, and now she found herself in his deadly grip. Fear and anger surged within Lindsay, her survival instinct kicking in. "Richard, this isn't the way. We can find another solution. Put the gun down and let's talk." Richard's grip tightened further, his voice dripping with disdain. "Talk? It's too late for talk, Lindsay. I've made up my mind. You and I will be remembered, forever intertwined." Lindsay's heart raced as she fought against the overpowering fear. She had to think quickly, find an opening, and free herself from Richard's grasp. In a split second, as fear and adrenaline surged through Lindsay's veins, she mustered every ounce of strength within her. With a sudden burst of movement, she swung her head backwards, connecting with Richard's face. The impact sent a shockwave of pain through his skull, momentarily disorienting him. Taking advantage of the distraction, Lindsay swiftly twisted and wriggled out of Richard's grasp. She sprinted away from him, her heart pounding in her chest, her mind focused on one thing, escaping his clutches and ensuring her own survival. Richard, stunned, regained his composure and lunged forward, but Lindsay was already a step ahead. With precision and determination, she drew her firearm, her hand steady despite the chaos unfolding around her. She aimed it directly at Richard, her voice firm and commanding. "Drop the weapon, Richard. It's over." Caught off guard by Lindsay's resolute stance, Richard hesitated for a brief moment. The realization of his impending defeat washed over him, and he slowly lowered his weapon to the ground, his face twisted with a mixture of rage and resignation. Lindsay kept her gun trained on him, maintaining a safe distance as she cautiously approached. She could feel the weight of the past, the victims, and the darkness that had consumed her partner. With a mix of determination and regret, she spoke with a stern resolve. "You're coming with me, Richard. This ends tonight." Richard's eyes flickered with a hint of defiance, but he knew he had been outmatched. In silence, he submitted to Lindsay's authority, knowing that the reign of the Midnight Ripper had come to an end. Lindsay radioed for backup, ensuring Richard was securely apprehended. With a mix of relief and sorrow, she reflected on the dark twist their partnership had taken and the tragedy that had unfolded. The Midnight Ripper was finally within their grasp, and justice would prevail for the victims and their families.
Autumn's Oddities is a strange and unusual podcast made by the strange and unusual, me, Autumn Gruby. Each week, I'll be taking you through some of the creepiest cases true crime has to offer. It won't only be true crime, I'll also be covering cryptids, haunted places, haunted things, and the true stories that inspired horror movies. Listen every Monday and Friday for new episodes. And remember, if it's creepy and weird, you'll find it here.
Thanks for camping out with Burnt Marshmallows. You can help support our spooky stories on Patreon at patreon.com/burntmarshmallows. We appreciate your support and can't wait to send you your very own cute marshmallow merch. We also appreciate your reviews on Apple Podcasts, which help new listeners find their way to our campsite. It can be a little tricky in the dark. You can find us on Instagram at Burnt Marshmallows Pod, TikTok also at Burnt Marshmallows Pod, Threads also Burnt Marshmallows Pod, and Facebook just by searching for Burnt Marshmallows Cozy Mysteries. See you next week, campers.